Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about yet another sexual abuse scandal. It seems like they're all over the place. Now granted, I don't think at any point in history there were zero sexual abuse scandals, though obviously with how the news is now, with how social media is now, it certainly does feel like a more dominant problem, though like I said, historically I think the problem has always existed. That being said, with social media it also means that people can share their stories and people who should be going to jail can be outed, so there is a positive, I suppose, if we must truly see one. How Harrods, London's luxury emporium, is dealing with a sexual abuse scandal. The 175-year-old department store is trying to make amends for alleged abuse by its former owner, Mohammed al-Fayed, even while shoppers seem undeterred. Now, the interesting thing is that this article went live on October 9th, which, to be fair, is not that long ago, but at the same time, I'm kind of surprised I hadn't seen anything about it on social media. I hadn't read anything about it, which, considering that it's Harrods, obviously any sexual abuse scandal should get its own attention, but especially with a store that's this historic, that's this tourist baity and a whole series of other things, it's kind of surprising to me that I haven't seen more, but then again, it might kick off later, or it'll go swept under the rug, much like a lot of other cases, but the numbers here are jarring, believe that. Across the department store's 7 labyrinthine floors, visitors weave their way past designer bags, diamond-encrusted watches, and columns carved with Egyptian hieroglyphics. Outside, shoppers pause for selfies in front of the terracotta facade, undeterred by the rain, clutching green paper bags with gold lettering spelling out the iconic name Harrods. Exactly what I was saying. That's one of the reasons why I was kind of surprised, because Harrods is so touristy as well, so you'd think that there'd be even more outrage. The department store, which first opened in 1849, has long drawn luxury shoppers, but a deluge of allegations of rape and sexual assault against the late Mohammed al-Fayed, a billionaire businessman and the owner of Harrods from 1985 until 2010, have complicated the image of the heritage-driven retailer. A BBC documentary last month detailed harrowing allegations of sexual abuse by Mr. al-Fayed against a number of female employees, raising questions about the culture within Harrods that they say enabled his behavior. So I don't think any of us are surprised that a department store led by a billionaire, especially a department store of this caliber that isn't one that just popped up one day out of nowhere, one that has a history and I guess a very clear image to uphold. Does it really surprise any of us that there's a toxic environment that would facilitate any type of abuse? I think not. Mr. al-Fayed, his accusers say, used Harrods as a hunting ground for young women whom he would select from the storeroom floor and then elevate to work in his personal office. At least 5 women said he raped them, while more than 20 former employees alleged other cases of sexual harassment and abuse, including within Harrods' offices, Mr. al-Fayed's home, or on business trips abroad. They allege that Mr. al-Fayed's behavior was an open secret within the company. A number of female employees said they were subjected to intrusive gyno exams and sexual health tests when joining Harrods. So when I first read this, I was extremely confused, obviously, but I didn't pause on it because I was trying to get all the information. But now that I'm pausing on it, so my question is, what type of department store requires a gyno exam or a sexual health exam? Like, what role could you have in a department store where that information is necessary? How's that not, that has to be illegal, right? To ask? That has to be illegal. I don't know about the legality of health exams generally, but especially for a department store where, unless I guess you're in the stockroom, but even then, could they ask for like health for like lifting shit? Listen, I have no idea. I guess it really depends on who they had on payroll, because I feel like a lawyer would have advised against these exams because those are records you're leaving behind showing that your behavior was inappropriate from the get-go and showing that your behavior is suspicious, to say the very extreme least. So that's also what I wonder in these cases, especially with billionaires. It's like, they don't even try to hide it, which is good for us because they get caught, but at the same time, then again, I guess some people just don't care, or they feel like they'll get away with it, which many of them do. In 2010, Mr. al-Fayed sold Harrods to Qatar's sovereign wealth fund for £1.5 billion, more than $2 billion at the time. Harrods has been responsive to the allegations, quickly announcing a settlement process and encouraging former employees to contact the business for support and potential recourse. It has also introduced 50 new sexual harassment officers who it says are trained to provide safe, empathetic assistance and support to workers with complaints of sexual harassment as part of a review of company culture. Now, one quick thing I am going to say here is that's great and all, though I tend to be a little jaded about these things because a lot of the times they just read as PR stunts in the sense of 50 sexual harassment officers. Are they going to be fired in like 6 months when nobody's really looking or caring anymore? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. And also, I think it's very telling that they rushed to settle. Now, that being said, I think in a lot of these cases, people, unless they really want to fight it, will settle so they don't have to fight things, even if they think they're being wrongly accused or whatever. What I will say is that just because Mr. al-Fayed is dead now, it's also a question of the company culture, right? Because if it was an open secret, other higher-ups knew about this and were okay enough with it to let it persist. So the problem will be ongoing. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like it's just about one person, though that one person was, let's say, the main person in the situation. If we have all the side characters left, they will also cause problems. I'm just saying, the mentality is still what it is. Even as the company addresses the fallout of the documentary, a stream of new allegations have poured in. Shocker. Lawyers say they now represent 71 clients who say they were abused by Mr. al-Fayed and are processing a further 220 inquiries. In a news conference last week, the lawyers said that they intend to file individual civil cases against Harrods. Mr. al-Fayed, who died last year at 94, was a larger-than-life figure who courted celebrities and royalty. Later in his life, he became best known for the romance between his son, Dodi, I might have butchered that, and Diana, Princess of Wales, who both died in a 1997 car crash in Paris. He left a clear imprint on the store, the Egyptian room, an opulent space overlooking the central escalator in Harrods, includes a number of pharaoh statues with a face modeled after his that were still visible in the store this week. Harrods said in a statement that since the new owners bought the store in 2010, Harrods has been investing heavily to remove physical remnants of Mohammed Fayed from the store and return the store to its Edwardian heritage. That work had been delayed because it is a listed building, a historical structure that requires special permission to renovate, Harrods said, adding, "This process is being expedited in respect to his victims and our colleagues." Now that's great that you want to take down the statues and whatever remnants, but in the big picture, this to me seems not that important. Now obviously you don't want victims to come face to face with concrete reminders of al-Fayed, especially considering how many alleged victims there are. That being said, we return to the main point that what should be checked is the company culture, because if this man was there for many years and a lot of the same people are still in charge, I don't know if they are, those are the people you really should be having conversations with, and also, I might add, potentially investigating, because if it was an open secret, which is the central point, are these people not all to some degree accomplices? To some degree. Now obviously some random person who works at Harrods in the store and isn't a higher up, no, I don't necessarily think they're an accomplice. But someone who's in the same offices, someone who had daily private meetings potentially with him, like the people who are really close, those people to me probably are to some extent accomplices, because it's hard for me to believe that no one ever reported al-Fayed while he was alive, like to the actual Harrods human resources, whoever. And it's hard for me to believe that the higher ups wouldn't have had a conversation. Therefore, some level of knowledge is there. I think that's indisputable. So as much as removing the statues or whatever is great, maybe the first thing we should do is check who's still working there, who was close to him, who knew what, and who also might have been involved. I'm just saying, a lot of these fucking weirdos, sexual abusers, hang out with other people who aren't that far off from the same behaviors. So maybe let's check that before worrying about the statues in the store. Outside the department store on a rainy day in London last week, several shoppers had not even heard of the allegations against Mr. al-Fayed. Exactly what I was saying. Reflecting the fact that many of the store's customers are international tourists and pointing to a likely area of resilience for the brand. A large number of visitors came from the Middle East and Asia. In 2017, the company said that Chinese citizens had overtaken British shoppers as the biggest spenders in the store. Louise D'Angelo, 69, and her daughter Crystal Purdick, 48, who were visiting London for 4 days from the United States, described Harrods as a must-see on their London checklist. Neither knew of the allegations against Mr. al-Fayed, but said they hoped the new owners were taking them seriously. And this is the last thing I'll say about tourism on this, but for the years that I lived in England, I only went to Harrods, I think, a handful of times. And I think that that's how it is for a lot of people who live there. It's like those places you don't go because so many tourists are there. So it wouldn't surprise me that Harrods wouldn't have taken as big a hit from tourists who didn't hear about this. Because again, like I said, I'm by no means the barometer, right? But I hadn't heard anything about this, and I'm on the internet a lot. So if I hadn't heard of it, it's hard for me to believe that maybe older people who are on the internet less, who even are maybe tuned in to particular types of news less, wouldn't have heard anything. In a lot of these big businesses, there's so much bad stuff that goes on, unfortunately, said Miss D'Angelo, who also works in retail. Natalie Berg, a retail analyst and host of the Retail Disrupted podcast, said that in the wake of #MeToo, Harrods could not afford any missteps in addressing the claims. The allegations against al-Fayed are horrific and will undoubtedly leave a stain on Harrods' reputation, she said. The retailer now needs to prove to the world that Harrods of 2024 is a safe and inclusive workspace, that they're addressing the systemic failures of the past. However, since Mr. al-Fayed owned Harrods for just 25 years of the store's 175-year history, Ms. Berg said that in the longer term, it might not make a difference to consumers who see Harrods as a British institution. I don't see the brand suffering long-term damage, but this could change depending on how current owners respond to more women coming forward, Ms. Berg said. Michael Ward, the managing director of Harrods, conveyed his personal horror at the revelations that have emerged in a statement last week and called the al-Fayed era a shameful period, maintaining that the business is now unrecognizable to Harrods under his ownership. I don't know why I don't really believe that, but benefit of the doubt, I suppose. He acknowledged that the company failed our colleagues, and for that we are deeply sorry. Mr. Ward, who worked for Mr. al-Fayed from 2006 until 2010, said he was not aware of his criminality and abuse, and while rumors of his behavior circulated in the public domain, the authorities had never come to him directly. London's Metropolitan Police said that between 2005 and 2023, they received allegations from 19 women about Mr. al-Fayed relating to offenses alleged to have taken place between 1979 and 2013. The police took evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service in 2009 and 2015, but no charges were ever brought. Last month, a spokesperson for the public prosecutor said in a statement that prosecutors at the time believed there was not a realistic prospect of conviction. Since the documentary aired, the police have encouraged any women affected to come forward and said they're investigating whether other individuals could be pursued for criminal offenses. So there's a tiny bit left. I'll link it down below if you want to read it. But I understand, the unlikelihood of conviction and all of that. But at the same time, I do think that there is something to be said about making matters public. Since matters have been public, since the documentary has come out, I don't know if it's reached the right people who were involved, who went through something, who knew someone who went through something, you know what I mean? So while it might have been a long shot, it probably was still worth to at least try to get a conviction because, like I said, it gets quote-unquote publicity, and I mean that in the way of reaching the people who might need to see it. But I don't know, I find all of this deeply depressing, and I really have to say, in the article it also says that nothing was confirmed and that there were rumors going around, right? For me, it's very hard to believe that nobody ever saw anything concrete or anything suspicious enough, because rumors go around for a reason. Now, sometimes they're made up, sure, but if they go around for a long time, and for this long a time, it's hard for me to think that nobody ever saw something that would have confirmed a rumor or that would have maybe indicated that a rumor had some basis in truth. It's hard for me to believe nobody saw anything. Let me just say that, okay? In a department store with this many people coming forward, it's really hard to believe. Anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always. I'll catch you guys next time.